So tell me how long you've been driving a bus for.
Not a long time, 5 years. It was the 5 to 6 years, I don't remember exactly. But anyway, it was quite a 5 years.
What's your favorite part about doing it?
Interaction with the kids, I think, was the funnest part for me. I learned a lot, and I hope that I taught a lot. I cared about the kids. You know, they were special. You see all variety of kids. I mean, from the ones, you kind of have a sense of what their home life is like. You know, you meet these kids when they first wake up. First one to meet them is your bus driver. You know, you smile at them. You kind of set the tone for the day. You really do. And so they smile. You smile at them. You say, "How you doing? Love you." Or I was known for high fiving or give me five or something like that, and they would do that. Most kids would. It just gave you a sense of fulfillment for me. I loved kids. I think that I recognized something about the children early on. You could tell a lot about a home life. I mean, you see all kinds of things in homes, through the kids. You know, you see if they're protected. You notice that if their parents give them attention, things like that. And you kind of, if you're sensitive to kids, you can pick up on those things right away. And I noticed especially about Christopher. He was a special kid, no doubt. And I've said this to other people. I don't just say that because of an interview or this tragedy that's happened to spotlight myself, but I say that because he really was special. And I remember in times after I got to know him, because he sat in a third seat behind me, and his cousins and Jocelyn and Daniela and all of them sat close to the front. On my route, they were usually the last ones I picked up and the first ones I dropped off. And so I would look up in the mirror oftentimes, many times, and I looked at him and he would look at me, and one of the funny things he would do, he'd just roll his eyes. You know, I'd look at him and I'd roll my eyes, and he'd scoot down this lower the seat, barely see over the seat, and he'd roll his eyes, and I'd do the same to him. So it was a communication, and I get a high five on the way out. See you later, Mr. Raymond, things like that. But it taught me a lot. It showed me a lot about people. You learn how to deal with all kinds of situations. You learn to deal with the families that are having a lot of trouble. You notice that in the kids. And you love them. I did. I loved those kids. I put a lot into it. I felt like they were a part of me. And Christopher was that kind of kid. He made you feel something. He interacted with you. He made you feel special too. And I know everybody wants to feel like that. Everybody wants to feel accepted. Everybody wants to feel loved. And when you share that with people, love and concern, it makes a difference. And I think that he was that kind of kid. He cared about people. He could have a bad day, and I could tell, but he was still friendly. He was still thoughtful of about what you would say or how you reacted. I could see that. And but there was one thing that we used to do, which I mentioned to you earlier. I'd get it on my phone. I had a phone app would give me the word of the day, and you get all kinds of words, and it wasn't routine, but I did it periodically, so they knew what to expect. And one of the words was logophile, and and that kind of blew their mind. So anyway, I give them the word of the day that morning. In the afternoon, they would come back with the definition. And Christopher came back with the definition. He was right away. It was right away. Anyway, he said, logophile, the definition, which means the lover of words. And so he said to me something just right after that, how important he felt that it was not the quantity of words, but the quality of words. And it kind of blew me away that an 11-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid would say something like that. And told me that he was a thinker. You know, he was not just your average kid, because kids most generally don't think of things like that. They get a word, a vocabulary list, and they go through the vocabulary list, and as soon as they can get the definition, that word is gone. But he wasn't like that. He must have thought about it. He thought that how important words were. He knew, because he was bilingual, and he knew that words mean something, and not just saying something just right off the top of your head, but said something that had meaning. He knew that was important. So I thought that was exceptional. He's a good kid. We're going to miss him, no doubt about it. I'm going to miss him. And a lot of his friends are going to miss him. And so he's well thought of in his school and on the bus. He was a super kid. He really was.
How did you feel when you found out about his death?
I was devastated. I mean, you know, you hear of people dying every day, right? You don't have a connection with them. But when you have a connection with that person, it really, it does something to you, if you're human at all. And I felt like that. I felt all kind of emotions at first, because I wanted to say, what happened? How could this happen? How, such a tragedy, because I know the responsibility of a bus driver is not just to interact with the kids, but it's to drive that bus and to be safe and to be aware, because there's all kind of things that can happen. And I thought I was angry, I was sad. How could that happen to Christopher, to any kid? But I realized that, tragedies happen just like everybody else. You think of those things. And I cried, and my wife said, "You need to go talk to somebody." And I said, "Well, I'll be okay." And I did. I cried, and I walked the floor and thought about it. How in the world? And I thought about where was he sitting at in that bus when that happened. And so it really bothered me. When you love people, it bothers you when their lives are touched in this kind of way. So yeah, it bothered me a lot.
When you went to go drive your bus that morning that they created the memorial in the bus, now where the students created that, kind of where he usually sits?
Well, you might have to edit this out, but I wasn't driving the bus then. Mm-hmm. See, I've since retired from driving the bus, but I did see it online. Mm-hmm. I'm on Facebook. So yeah, I noticed in the pictures kids that were on the bus that I knew. In the picture, you see a kid leaning over the back of the seat. I knew that kid too. I knew that him and Christopher were really good friends. And it doesn't seem real. It just seems like most deaths. It doesn't seem real. How could this happen? Saddened. But I'm glad that the kids choose to remember him, and they choose to celebrate him. They loved him. You look at the little comments because you focus in on those pictures, and you can read some of the things that are on the cards. And it just tells you that Christopher was liked, he was cared about. And that what else is there in life? When you pass away from this life, all you have left is what people said about you, what they thought about you. And that's what we're left with Christopher. We're left with what people thought about him. And you read those kind of things. He wasn't a scoundrel. He wasn't a troubled kid. He was a good kid. He was thoughtful. He had lots of friends. He was concerned about people. And he shared who he was. That's why people liked him, because they realized that he was a good guy. Everybody loves a good guy. And that's what Christopher was. He was a good guy, no doubt.
How did it feel seeing that picture and seeing how, kids you used to drive kind of come together and remember him?
I wasn't surprised, honestly, because I was blessed with a great group of kids. We never had a gloom and doom bus. My bus was exciting. I interacted with the kids. I knew that those kids were happy. There was no fighting. I never had a fight on my bus. I didn't have a bunch of rebellious kids. I had kids that cared about one another. You know, they would come together. We had a tragedy hit that bus route before. Quindell was a young man that passed away a couple of years ago, and the kids mourned his death as well. You know, I remember something similar to that. They like made a memorial for him. So they cared about one another. It wasn't just a bus full of kids that didn't know each other. It was a bus full of kids that cared about each other. That's what kind of bus I had. I was very fortunate. So it left me with a sense of gratification to know that I was a part of something like that. You know, not every day did you get to be a part of something that leaves you with a feeling of happiness, leaves you with a feeling of that I'm doing something, not just driving a bus, because it can be mundane. You know, day in, day out, seeing the same kids every day. But it was rewarding, to say the least. So I'm going to draw. I'll tell you what it was. It was probably one of the best jobs I ever had. You know, I've had a few jobs. A lot of them I didn't like. You know, you did it because you had to. But this was. I got up early enough to get to work. I didn't drag in. I got to work and started up my bus early in the morning. I was looking forward to the day. I knew that I was going to see kids that were happy. You know, as kids get older, you see them change in their personalities. You see when the young kids, like the elementary kids, you'll have plenty to edit out, right?
I got you. No, you're doing great.
You know, throughout their lives and your experience in this position, you see kids grow. You get them when they barely can get on the bus. You know, mom and dad has to help them up on that first step, and you see them climb up. You know, and you watch them get in the seat, and then you see that boy grow up until he's a senior in high school. So you see the phases of their lives that they go through, and I do distinctly remember how that when kids are small, they forgive easy, and they smile a lot, and they're happy to see you. And you see them when they come out of the house and go to the side of the road and they've had a bad morning, you know. And they might be crying. And you feel like you want to do something for them, you know. You know their home life's not what it needs to be, because you can see what's in that house from those kids' reactions to you, to others. And when you see things that are not going very good, it bothers you, most definitely. I guess Christopher, every time I seen him, he had a smile on his face. How you doing, Mr. Raymond? What's up, Baldy? Or something like that. You know, we had a relationship, and I was pleased with him. Not that he needed my approval, but I enjoyed being with him, talking to him. So kids grow up and they change from elementary children to middle school to high school. You see the changes in their lives, and it affects you for the good. Sometimes it leaves you with a sad feeling, but that's life, right? You just keep on keeping on. It's been rewarding. It's kind of like the old saying is, I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience, but I wouldn't take $1 million to do it again, because it pulls you in every way, especially after this tragedy. I guess that's what makes us overcomers, is if you can overcome the tragedy. And I think that Athens, I think that the middle school, those that drive other buses, those administrators there at the bus barn, David Glover, Basha Cox, and Keith Porter were great influences on the bus drivers themselves. David was a great leader. Basha, she was a great organizer. She's always helpful, ready to intervene if there's a problem or help give you a solution. David was a great administrator, supervisor. You could always go to him without any kind of fear of condemnation. He was willing to listen. And that's what we need. Bus drivers have a great responsibility to drive that bus, be safe, have a great attitude, love those kids, be a disciplinarian when they need to, be a counselor, you know, be a friend. You go through so many emotions, so many situations. You almost need a doctorate degree to be a bus driver. People don't understand how important that job is. Look at this tragedy. How important is that job now? It is very important. You better stop at every stop sign. You better stop at every crossing. You better be aware what's going on. Parents come up to your bus, aggravated, at life maybe. One small thing might have been said to a child from another child, and you got a parent at your door ready to rip your head off.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about Christopher?
I think I'd like to say to him, if it were possible, to tell him I love him. And he's in more capable hands now than he's ever been. You know, he's not in the hands of a bus driver, a school teacher, a mother, a pastor, but he's in the hands of someone now that's well able to take care of him. And I would like to say to him, I love you. It's going to be all right, buddy. And I would like to say too, to his cousins that rode the bus, that you will see him again. Don't be discouraged. Keep on keeping on. And I'm sorry for your loss.